You can do anything, break every rule. Nothing is impossible. We are constantly surrounded by this messaging. Every modern tech keynote and startup pitch sells the exact same premise, that human ambition is entirely limitless. But the universe does not care about motivational slogans. When raw, unchecked ambition meets the hard boundaries of physical laws, reality always wins. Human society operates on rules we invented. We write traffic laws, economic policies, and zoning codes. And because we invented them, we can bend, rewrite, or ignore them. But the laws of the physical universe have no judges and no appeals. If you design a bridge that ignores gravity, or an engine that ignores friction, you don't force nature to comply. You just build a very expensive pile of rubble. To actually build systems that work, we have to discard the fantasy that we are unbound by constraints. We have to understand exactly what is physically impossible. This brings us to a framework for decision-making built on 3 pillars. First, philosophy gives direction and intent. Second, mathematics allows us to measure and model patterns. But it's the 3rd pillar, physics, that serves as the ultimate anchor. It sets the strict boundaries of mechanics. Acknowledging these boundaries doesn't stifle our goals. It acts as an indisputable reality check, ensuring that whatever we model and intend to build can actually survive in the real world. Let's look at the maximum speed of the cosmos. Space and time form a single dynamic mesh. Within that mesh, light travels at exactly 299,792,458 meters per second. That number represents the speed of causality, the absolute maximum rate at which one event can influence another. Because this boundary is hardwired into the fabric of space, instantaneous action is structurally impossible. No signal, no matter how advanced the technology, can jump from point A to point B without a delay. We deal with this constantly. The global positioning satellites orbiting Earth have to continuously adjust their onboard atomic clocks to offset relativistic time dilation. If they didn't account for how gravity and speed bend time, the navigation on your phone would fail almost immediately. When we accept that time and causality have strict limits, we stop chasing the illusion of zero-latency transmission. We start building networks and systems engineered to operate effectively within those mandatory delays. Take a look at a hot cup of coffee sitting in a cold room. Over time, it steadily cools down, dissipating heat into the air. This is entropy at work, the natural, universal drift from order into disorder. No matter how long you wait, that cold cup of coffee will never spontaneously absorb heat from the room and make itself hot again. The process only flows in one direction. Every physical action, every chemical reaction, and every computational sequence pays a tax in heat loss. The second law of thermodynamics dictates that you cannot execute work without losing a fraction of your usable energy. This diagram shows a modern data center rack. Notice the cooling system actively fighting the heat generated by the servers. The engineers don't waste time trying to build frictionless computers. They know the heat tax is mandatory, so they engineer massive cooling infrastructure to offset it. Entropy proves there is no free lunch. You cannot pull output from a system without putting energy in, and you always lose a little energy along the way. Our projects and ambitions have to account for that true energetic cost. Amateurs look at absolute limits and see a tragedy. They see walls keeping them from doing what they want. But an architect looks at those exact same limits and sees raw material. Think about structural engineering. If gravity and friction didn't exist, you couldn't build a suspension bridge. There would be no tension, no anchoring, nothing to push back against. We only gain leverage over our environment by deeply understanding and obeying its non-negotiable parameters. A race car driver uses the friction of the road to take a corner at high speeds. They don't complain that the road is rough. Absolute constraints are the exact friction required to ignite human ingenuity. The boundaries of the playground define the game. This brings us straight to our daily lives. Human biology and personal routines operate under these exact same laws. Without active intervention, our health, our focus, and our organizations naturally drift toward disorder. To counter personal entropy, establish strict maintenance. Energy inputs like rest must offset natural decay. Over time, this chart shows budgeting effort requires realism. You must schedule recovery for the heat tax of stress, rather than pretending you can run at maximum capacity forever. Decision-making requires all three of these pillars working together. You need the philosophy to know your purpose, the mathematics to map the variables, and the physics to anchor your plans in the real world. By building within these non-negotiable rules, you stop merely reacting to environmental triggers and biological instincts. You become a designer of outcomes, exercising the intentional agency required to stay sovereign over your own path in a world of automated systems.